The NFL draft is less than a month away, so today we're going to look at some mock drafts and see where some experts have Sauce Gardner and Desmond Ridder landing, and the big takeaways from a recent Big 12 fan survey that included Bearcats fans. Plus, Bearcats baseball is set to take on Xavier in the Joe Nuxhall Classic tonight. All of that coming up on Locked On Bearcats.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever, Spotify. That's the other one I was looking for. You name it. Alex Frank here with you on this Wednesday, March the 30th of 2022. And we are less than a month away, as I mentioned, from the NFL draft. 8 Bearcats with the opportunity to be selected in this year's NFL draft. We are going to see a first-round draft pick in Sauce Gardner, maybe Desmond Ridder, but Desmond Ridder will at least be going at least on Friday, if not Thursday. So let's take a look at some mock drafts that I have seen recently. We'll start with Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com, NFL Network, color analyst for the LA Chargers Radio Network. Daniel Jeremiah recently unveiled his latest top 50 prospects. I listened to his podcast yesterday, or on Monday rather, Move the Sticks with Bucky Brooks. And Daniel Jeremiah has Sauce Gardner going number 3. Sauce Gardner as his third best player. And he had some really interesting things to say about Sauce Gardner. Went over all the details, the fact that he's really good in press coverage, he has really good hands, he can jam receivers, he can recover if he slips with a tremendous burst of speed. He compared Sauce Gardner to Antonio Cromartie, who you remember as a cornerback for the Jets, the Chargers' 4-time Pro Bowler. If Sauce Gardner can end up like him, holy smokes, he's going to have a really good career. Had Derek Stingley Jr. ranked 15th. So he thinks far and away Sauce Gardner is the best corner in this NFL draft. I will admit I have not watched a lot of LSU football since Joe Burrow led them to a national championship in 2019. I know of Derek Stingley Jr. I think he's a really good corner, but I've seen Sauce Gardner play, and he is an absolute shutdown corner. Mel Kiper Jr. has Sauce going top 10 to the New York Jets. Hey, the New York Jets have had a shutdown corner in recent years. Remember Darrelle Revis. Maybe Sauce Gardner can be like him. Mel Kiper Jr. mentioned Sauce Gardner's outstanding tools, holding his own against elite talent. Is a huge fan, calls him the consensus number 1 corner in this year's NFL draft. Sauce Gardner, the number 1 corner. This is unbelievable. This is how far the program of Cincinnati has come. I know I keep saying it. I might sound like a broken record, but you have a player who was 6th on the depth chart when he arrived at Cincinnati in 2019, and now he's going to be going top 10 in the draft. Top 10. Not top 100, not top 200, top 10. CBS Sports has a panel of 5 experts. They recently did their mock drafts. It consists of Kyle Stackpole, Pete Briscoe, Josh Edwards, Chris Trapasso, and Ryan Wilson. Ryan Wilson, along with Will Brinson, co-hosts the Pick 6 podcast for CBS Sports. So Pete Briscoe had Sauce Gardner going number 10 to the Jets, Derek Stingley number 12 to the Vikings. All 5 CBS Sports draft experts, analysts, whatever you call them, had Sauce Gardner going anywhere from 4 to 12. So that's an average of around the 8th overall pick in the draft. The 8th overall pick. Now, I mentioned Daniel Jeremiah has Sauce Gardner number 3. That would mean right now he goes to the Houston Texans. I hope and pray he does not go there. Because the Houston Texans are probably the worst run organization in the NFL. The Browns are right up there with them. The Jets are up there with them. The Bengals are not. They maybe were 5 years ago, but they're not now. The problem with being a top 10 pick is you're going to a team, most likely, that's not very good. Unless you're Patrick Mahomes, you're not going to be going to a team that's good. You're going to a team that is drafting high because they weren't very good last year. Maybe they haven't been good in recent years. But there are teams who are picking in the top 10. We can run down the list of teams in the top 10. Jacksonville, not a well-run organization. Detroit, better, not a well-run organization. Houston, I just mentioned them. The Jets, not a well-run organization. The Giants, not a well-run organization. The Panthers, don't really know where they're going. Giants, not a well-run organization as of late. Atlanta, Arthur Blank's a solid owner. They've had remarkable success under him, but I wouldn't say that he's one of the best owners in the game, and the Falcons are one of the best organizations in the NFL. The Seahawks at number 9, that's fine. I know actually, Josh Edwards has Sauce Gardner going number 9 to Seattle. I would be all in on that. Seattle has, for years they've been well structured within the front office. John Schneider's a good GM. They've been to the playoffs numerous times since they moved to the NFC in 2002. I'd be okay with Sauce Gardner going there. You're going to an organization that has a rabid fan base, that is going in a rebuild mode with Russell Wilson, potentially in a rebuild mode without Russell Wilson. Tyler Lockett's now gone. They don't have, their best receiver is DK Metcalf. They just released Bobby Wagner. I don't even know if they did release Tyler Lockett. This is something I should know. But I'd be okay with Sauce Gardner going number 9. The draft, the scouting report on Sauce Gardner. Gardner has a case to be the top overall prospect in the class. Wow. And the Seahawks are able to add him with the pick acquired in the Russell Wilson trade. I still think they are the favorite to trade for Baker Mayfield as well. They compare him to Richard Sherman. Strengths include man coverage, history of production dating back to freshman year. Weaknesses, handsy downfield and tackling. I'd be okay with Sauce Gardner going to Seattle. What I don't understand is they're looking at these mock drafts. Why Desmond Ridder is not, being talked about as a first round quarterback. 2 members of CBS, Tyler Lockett is still with the Seahawks. So, okay, you'd be going up against some pretty good receivers in practice if you go to Seattle. What I don't understand is why Desmond Ridder is not even in Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. Josh Edwards has him going number 20 to Pittsburgh. Lord help me if that happens. Not for Desmond Ridder. I'm going to root for Desmond Ridder like hell to have crazy success in the NFL. But going to Pittsburgh, as a Bengals fan, as you see here, I don't know how I feel about that. Kyle Stackpole from CBS has Ridder going number 32 to Detroit. I think Desmond Ridder, if he can stay in the Midwest, close to the tri-state, he's from Louisville, played obviously at Cincinnati. If he can stay in the Midwest, I think that'd be good for him. It'd be good for his family. It'd be good for Claire. It'd be good for Leighton. So it's just interesting, though, why people aren't so high on Desmond Ridder. And the unique thing about this draft is the quarterback class is not as good as it's been in recent years. Not as good as last year's, not nearly as good as 2020, even 2019, 2013. It's just not that great of a quarterback class. But the problem is there's other positions, offensive tackle, wide receiver, or offensive lineman in general, offensive lineman, wide receiver, corner, safety, defensive end, pass rusher, edge. So many other positions are so deep that teams may not need to take a quarterback. And there are a lot of teams in the NFL that have their quarterbacks set in stone. They're not going to be taking quarterbacks. The Bengals have theirs, the Chargers, the Bills, the Rams, and now the Tampa Bay's off the quarterback market because Tom Brady returned. So it's going to be really interesting to see how far Desmond Ridder slides down if he's not taken early in the first round. I still think he could be a first-round pick. I still think he could be a Week 1 NFL starter next year. His ascension in the last half of his junior season to his senior season from where he was his first 2.5 years is remarkable. I think if scouts can see that, if they can see his leadership, which Kyle Stackpole cites as a strength, experience, and leadership. Like I said, if Desmond Ridder started over 50 games in his college career, I don't care if that's in the American Athletic Conference or the SEC. He started 50 plus career games. He won 40 plus games as a starter. That's experience. Two-time AAC Offensive Player of the Year, two-time conference champion. Not a lot of quarterbacks can say that. Tua can't say that. Jalen Hurts can say that. But think of the quarterbacks who can't say they're two-time conference champions. There's not a lot of quarterbacks who can say that. That is a remarkable accomplishment. Could have been 3. He played in 3 conference championship games. He's been one of the most successful quarterbacks in college football over the last 5 years. If he did all this at a Power 5 school, I guarantee you he'd be a first-round pick. He should be regardless. But we'll see how teams draft this year. Either way, the fact that you have Sauce Gardner and Desmond Ridder as being highly talked about, Sauce Gardner going first round, Desmond Ridder going at least in the second round, this is a testament as to how far the program has come. Coming up, there was a recent Big 12 fan survey in The Athletic that included you as Bearcats fans. The big takeaways next. But first, I need to tell you about Stat Hero because I love and I hate those buzzer beaters. The drama, but oh, the pain when you are on the other side of it. Stat Hero's NCAA single game pick'ems pits the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Start focusing on the players you know best with a gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, lone odds, or funky props. In addition to their pick'em games, they also have dozens of lineups you can comb through to take on head-to-head. Stat Hero is the easiest and fastest way to get your sports action fix. This is what daily fantasy was meant to be. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon, promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so you got to have some fuel to your brain to think about the lineups you want to play with Stat Hero. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm fueling my brain and I'm eating right thanks to Built Bar because it almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. They're the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included. 100% real chocolate. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Here's an offer for you. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Alex Frank here with you on this Wednesday, March the 30th of 2022. So there was a recent fan survey in The Athletic, the Big 12. Max Olson did a recent fan survey of Big 12 fan bases, current and future, and soon to be past, with Oklahoma and Texas. And I was struck by a lot of things within this survey, most notably the fact that Luke Fickell got the highest rating among current and future Big 12 head coaches. They asked every fan base, current Big 12 fan bases and future Big 12 fan bases, which includes Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU. They asked you as fans to rate your head coach on a scale of 1 to 10. Luke Fickell got a 9.96 rating. 9.96. Let that tell you something. Bearcats fans were included, which shows you more than one thing. One, first and foremost, that Luke Fickell is unbelievably revered, respected, loved in Cincinnati. We know that. Bearcats fans love the job Luke Fickell has done with the Cincinnati Bearcats football program. But number two, it shows that I think it shows, and I don't have the exact statistics on how many Bearcats fans voted in this. But it's interesting that I think a lot of Bearcats fans participated in this. And it goes to show you the fan base that the Big 12 is getting. They're not just getting a school with a great football program right now and a men's basketball program that hopefully has a revitalization, but they're getting a school that has a rabid fan base, a well-traveling fan base, a community that is bought into Bearcats athletics. It's more than just, to me, and this is what it says, it's more than just about a school with great sports programs going to the Big 12. It's a school that's going to be an active member. Oklahoma and Texas are not active members technically right now. They are, but they're also not, because they're also looking to the future. Cincinnati is going to be an active member in the Big 12 because of their fan base. That's what this takeaway says to me. 39% from fans of, or actually, that's actually a different story there. I gotta organize my notes better. So, 50.1% of fans said they are very satisfied with new members. That's huge. And there were a lot of questions asked in this. Like, they asked about how you feel about your head coach. Who's going to win the most Big 12 titles over the next decade? Who's the most overrated head coach? Who's the most underrated head coach? Do you want to see divisions in the Big 12 in 2023? There were a lot of questions asked. But 50.1% of fans said they are very satisfied with new members. 39% from fans of current Big 12 teams said they are very satisfied with the new members. That speaks volumes to the job that Bob Bowlesby did in recruiting big new members in the wake of their two hallmark programs, arguably, especially in football, Oklahoma and Texas leaving. Now you're getting Cincinnati, who just played in the college football playoff. You're getting BYU, who is a national powerhouse with a very large following around the country. And you get to expand the conference all the way out west to Salt Lake City. You have UCF coming in, which is Josh Neighbors, Locked On Big 12 host, mentioned to me last week that you got Orlando now, and that's going to be a hot spot for a lot of fan bases to travel. Texas Tech, Cincinnati, West Virginia, and now you have Houston, so another Texas team, another team that's been a force in basketball, that's going to be really good in football potentially. Dana Holgorsen is now going to be coaching in the Big 12 again after coaching in West Virginia for several years. There was a comment in particular from a TCU fan. I'm not going to mention his name, but one TCU fan regarding if he's happy about the new members of the Big 12. He said, in quote, "Best schools available. Cincinnati showed they're going to be super competitive in college football. BYU has actual history against some of the schools in the Big 12. Houston makes too much sense, and I like the reach for UCF, which will no doubt benefit from more resources. This makes the Big 12 such a fun league in both football and basketball," end quote. That's some strong words there. That's some strong, encouraging, endorsing there from this TCU fan. And TCU is going to be in the Big 12. I mean, they can build their men's basketball program off of this year and the success they had. Jamie Dixon, they have a new football head coach in Sonny Dykes. Fans were a little skeptical on him. They think they need to see him win on the field. Sonny Dykes coming from SMU. It is going to be very, very interesting to see. I'm reading that Joey McGuire at Texas Tech, you heard Josh Neighbors on my show last week mention that he has Texas Tech on the come up. Maybe Kansas has a revitalization of football. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. And then from a basketball perspective, you have one team playing in the Final Four this weekend in Kansas. You have another team playing in the Final Four. I'm sorry, you had Baylor win the national championship last year. You had Texas Tech in the Final Four in 2019. So this is a very competitive conference as it is. You look at the league and you're seeing all these close games, how hard it is to win on the road. You saw Kansas play Baylor this year twice. Kansas whooped their ass, Baylor's ass, the first time around in early February. Fast forward 3 weeks later, and the rematch in Waco, Baylor trailed. They didn't start off well, but then by the end of the game, they won by 10. So that shows you just how good and experienced this league is and how experienced you have to be. Look at guys like OJ Ajabi. Look at guys like Remy Martin and McCormick and Lightfoot for Kansas. Look at guys on Baylor like Adam Flagler. And this year, they unfortunately, due to injury, they didn't have Jonathan Chachua. You look at guys like Akinjo. You look at TCU and the experience they have. You look at Texas Tech, and they had, O'Banner and Kevin McCullough Jr. And then you look at Iowa State, and they were able to come back from 2 wins the previous year and make the NCAA tournament. This is going to be a battle. 75% of fans think the new additions will make the conference more competitive. I just like that there's new blood. These 4 teams come in are going to add some sort of new blood and competitiveness to this conference. You like what you're seeing from Houston in basketball. They just played in the Elite Eight. You like what you're seeing from Cincinnati in football. You like what you're seeing from UCF, the fact that they have a rabid fan base. I believe at one point, I know at least in recent years, they had the highest enrollment of any school in the state of Florida. And then BYU is a huge national following. It's a national brand. Whether or not they've had remarkable success in sports as of late, historically, they have a pedigree. They won a national championship in the 80s. Men's basketball has been competitive in recent years. You like what you're seeing from Brigham Young. And of course, being able to go to Salt Lake City, you're going to be able to geographically go all the way from West Virginia to the Rocky Mountains and then down to Orlando and then over to Texas. Other questions that were asked, if the Big 12 were to expand again, which most fans were not in favor of, but if it were to, the top 2 teams that got the highest percentage of votes for another round of expansion, Arizona and Arizona State got the highest votes. I think that's interesting because I would personally want Memphis to create a rivalry between Cincinnati and Memphis, create some other really exciting matchups with Memphis in the Big 12. Maybe Boise State go up to Idaho. I would say Gonzaga, but they don't have a football team, so unfortunately they're out. But Arizona and Arizona State, you want to talk about having a wide range of geography in the conference. That's also a problem, though, because as we're seeing conference realignment take place, I don't think you can deny that we could be heading to a landscape in college sports where there are 4 mega conferences and the other conferences are just there to fend for themselves. That's unfortunate. That's a scary thought if you're Michael Resco in the American Athletic Conference. If you're even Val Ackerman and the Big East, if you're Bernadette McLeod, if you're, I forget her last name, but if you're the commissioner of the A10, I mean, this goes for the same in college basketball. Now, if you're Greg Sankey and you're Jim Swafford, or John Swafford, Jim Phillips, formerly John Swafford, commissioner of the AACC. If you're Greg Sankey, if you're Bob Bowlesby, if you're Larry Scott, if you're Kevin Warren, if you're Jim Phillips, you're in good hands. You're in good hands potentially if this goes 4 mega conferences. But if you're any other conference commissioner, it's looking a little dire if we go there. I don't know. Can I deny the fact that we're going there? No. Are we for sure going there, though? Also, no. It is going to be very interesting to see the landscape of college athletics come 2030, come 2040, what it's going to be like, especially if the Big 12 does expand again. It is going to be very interesting to see how this changes college athletics. Who actually gets a chance to really compete for a national championship? Which conferences benefit? Are the smaller conferences going to, be able to have more of a competitive opportunity in football? We know in basketball they do, but in football, which drives conference realignment, it's going to be very interesting to see what the landscape looks like. Up next, the Bearcats Joe Nuxhall Classic, as the Bearcats are set to take on arch rival Xavier, looking to buck a recent trend. We'll get into it next. But first, I got to tell you about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for you to go to your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, which is good because you can save time and money when using Rock Auto. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And once again, thank you for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Alex Frank here with you on this Wednesday, March the 30th, 2022. Real quick, I'm recording this on Tuesday afternoon. There is some news from Tom Pelissero, NFL Network insider reporter. NFL owners approved a modified overtime rule for postseason only, ensuring both teams get a possession per source. Why not do it in the regular season? But good in the postseason. The New Orleans Saints are signing quarterback Andy Dalton to a one-year deal. A source said 1 year, $3 million guaranteed deal that's worth up to $6 million with incentives. Now, they just signed Jameis Winston, so Andy Dalton's going there to be a backup, which I guess he's okay with. But then again, Andy Dalton might be better than Jameis Winston. At least Andy Dalton has played in a playoff game. Interesting, though. Very interesting. Andy Dalton going to New Orleans. Will be interesting to see how that plays out. If he sees playing time, the Bengals go to New Orleans next year. They faced Andy Dalton in the first 2 years since he left the Bengals in 2000, or he was released by the Bengals after the 2019 season after they drafted Joe Burrow. Anyway, tonight, the Joe Nuxhall Classic, the Bearcats taking on Xavier from UC Baseball Stadium on the campus of the University of Cincinnati, 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus. The telecast, it is following, that is following Miami, Ohio, and Wright State, who will play also in the Joe Nuxhall Classic semifinals, 2 o'clock from UC Baseball Stadium. This was one of my favorite events. When I was a student at the University of Cincinnati, I had the privilege of commentating the games in 2019. It is an event to honor and recognize the obviously the life and legacy of Joe Nuxhall and his meaning to baseball within the city of Cincinnati. Joe Nuxhall, of course, the longtime color analyst on the Reds radio network with Marty Brenneman, of course, played for the Cincinnati Reds. Made his major league debut at 15, 16 years old, something like that. He is a legend within the city of Cincinnati. Lefty, Nuxie, however you want to call him. So the Bearcats are struggling right now in baseball. They were off to a really good start, but they are 9-13 right now. They've lost 3 in a row. This is a team that won its first 2 games, lost their next 3, won their next 2, and then took 3 out of 4 from Northwestern. But they've been on a recent stretch of losses since then. They did take 3 out of 4 from St. Joseph's to improve to 9-10. But this team at one point was 6-10. They had lost, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games. A lot of them were close games. Some of them were more blowouts. But here's a program that has lost 3 straight games by 1 run. They made a nice comeback against Xavier on Friday night last week, fell 8-7. They lost 8-7 on Sunday after holding a 5-1 lead before Xavier tied the game with a grand slam. And then yesterday they fell 6-5 at Prasco Park. So they're looking to buck a recent trend. 1-run losses. And when I was at the University Cincinnati, the Bearcats always seem to play their best baseball when conference play started. They fed off of the teams that weren't very good in the conference, and then they were able to win some gutsy games against teams that were tougher, and they always seem to play their best down the stretch. They always seem to, enter conference tournament play with some momentum. They did last year, sweeping Tulane in a 4-game series. They did in 2019. They entered as a 2 seed. They won the conference tournament that year, of course, to go to the NCAA tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see. This is what you could use as a final tune-up for conference play, because they go to East Carolina, who's historically dominated this conference, the American Athletic Conference. They go to they host East Carolina, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then they play Houston next weekend, also in Cincinnati. That's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series before going to Louisville next Tuesday. So a lot of tough baseball action coming up. They play ECU, by the way, twice in conference play. So this is going to be a very interesting stretch for Cincinnati. The winners of the Joe Nuxhall Classic games tonight will play in the Joe Nuxhall Classic championship game next Wednesday. That game's in Oxford. When I was at the University of Cincinnati in 2019, the semifinal games were on a Tuesday. The Tuesday after the NCAA Tournament National Championship game, they were on Tuesday night, the semifinals, and then the championship game was on Wednesday in Cincinnati. UC won the first game of the Joe Nuxhall Classic versus Xavier, and then they fell just short to Miami in the championship game. Really fun event. Enjoyed getting to commentate that event for Bearcast Media. And obviously, when you are a part of a big event that honors such a legendary sports figure in Cincinnati, in Joe Nuxhall. By the way, all 4 teams that are coming into this series, they're struggling. Xavier's, 12-13. Wright State is Xavier's 12-13. Wright State's 9-12, but they played Oklahoma State and Georgia Tech. Oklahoma State's number 3 in the country, Georgia Tech number 11. Miami, Ohio's 8-13. We look at the American standings right now. You've got South Florida at 17-7, Houston at 16-8, Tulane at 16-8-1. Didn't know you could still tie in baseball. Okay. Memphis 12-8, UCF 14-10, East Carolina 14-11, Wichita State 11-12, and then Cincinnati right now, conference play has not started for any of the 8 teams in the American, 9-13. But there's still plenty of time to pick things up as we head into the stretch run in conference play and the rest of the season. This has been fun. Still more to get to this week. Tomorrow, there was a conversation recently that Dan Hoard had with Bearcats football head coach Luke Fickell. We'll talk about the big takeaways from their conversation. You can follow me on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's, NNATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, and email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. Also, follow Locked On Bearcats on Twitter at LockedOnCats. Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to Locked On Bearcats on YouTube and like and leave a comment for this particular episode. It helps more Bearcats fans like you find this podcast. I'm Alex Frank for Locked On Bearcats. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.